All right, guys, today we're going to go ahead and knock out section 6.3. Cool. All right, in 6.3, our focus is on how does life perpetuate itself. So right off the bat, we'll call this perpetuating life. And what does it mean to perpetuate? A little louder because I hear words, but I just can't distinguish what they are.
Like to keep going?
To keep going, right? So when I see that word, realistically, I think of perpetual motion that does not exist, but that's where my mind goes to right off the bat. Do you guys know what perpetual motion is? Okay. If you don't, it's where motion adds to more motion and you just start it and it never stops. It'd be like infinite energy. Can't make it work. Now, right off the bat, as we go through here, we are very obviously going to be talking about reproduction stuff. Now, first off, when offspring is produced, regardless of the way that it's produced, they inherit some genes. Okay, not like wranglers or anything like that. When we talk about genes, what are we talking about? So it's I'm okay with the idea of DNA, but it's how we get traits and characteristics to continue on, right? Now, it does wind up moving through DNA and chromosomes and things like that, but I'm okay with it. So that is known as heredity. Whatever those characteristics that are inherited or given by generation to generation is known as heredity. So our first topic here, as we look, we need to discuss the modes or the methods to which everything in our existence of our planet of life reproduces. So the modes of reproduction. Now, this is not going to be a sex ed class, just so you're aware. We don't have to go any super specific. But there's a couple different ways that we can try or that we can reproduce. Right off the bat, if you've ever noticed in your house that a bunch of dust gathers, like everybody's house gets dust, even if you're clean, where does the dust come from? Some of it's from the air, but the bulk of it is right here. You can't even see it. Right now, as I'm just touching my arm, as your arms are moving, your face is moving, gross. Gross about what just happened there, just for the record. A lot of the dust that you see in your house is just dead skin cells. Like, a lot of it. Okay, enjoy it. It's there. Now, the good news is that your cells aren't just gone, because if all those cells just fell off, bummer, you're now exposed to every illness and disease that's out there. Your cells reproduce themselves. Like, that happens. Okay, the means at which that happens. Do my skin cells have to engage in any sort of sexual activity to make more skin cells? No, I don't think so. I don't see it. So what is that word that you said? It is asexual. When you see a in front of a word, it is a negation. Not is what we can think of it as meaning. Asexual reproduction. Okay. Now, for the bulk of your cells in your body, it undergoes asexual reproduction. Obviously, for you to get here, it was not asexual because we're humans and that's not how we breed. But that's okay. As we're looking at this, if we look at asexual reproduction, you do not need two people. You don't need two organisms. Single organism will do this. So, one organism or structure is all that we need. One organism needed. Okay, not two, just one. Now, beyond this, this means that if we only have one organism, the offspring should have how many parents, depending on the situation? One. That's it. Okay, as we go through here, there's a couple different ways that we can knock this out. In your body, your cells are constantly reproducing. Your skin cells do it because they slough off otherwise. Very few cells in your body do not reproduce themselves. Can you think of any traumatic injury that you just do not recover from? Like brain injuries. Brain injuries are the big ones. Brain cells do not replenish themselves. If somebody has a serious brain injury, they may get some function back just as the brain rewraps itself, but those cells are gone. Now, the good news is that there are cases, there's like pretty few and far between, but you can take out like half of a person's brain and they're still alive. They're still the same person, even though it's only half their brain. It's strange the way it works. There's some crazy stuff. Neuroscience is going to be a huge field. Now, for other cells in our body, like my skin cells or muscle cells, whatever the case is, they do reproduce. Now, how does reproduction look for cells in our body? There's an M word. It is mitosis. So, if we're looking at this, the good news is that if I have a skin cell and it needs replaced, I want to replace it with another skin cell that's the exact same, right? I am going to essentially clone that cell. And not essentially, we are going to clone it. It's going to be an exact copy. So one organism needed, and we'll just say beyond that, the offspring, whatever these offspring happen to be, are clones. Now, I can use the word clone here, or you can say genetically identical, potato, potato. Okay, in our body, our offspring of our cells are just new cells. And the asexual way that cells reproduce is this bigger idea of mitosis. Okay, we can go crazy in depth or not. Andrew's seen this in super depth in the last week or so when we've gone over all this stuff. What is mitosis? Can somebody give me the elevator version? A cell splits apart. Anything else have to happen? So here's my challenge to you, because everybody's seen mitosis. You're not wrong. I think we could be more correct, Huggins, but you are correct. Something about a cell splitting apart. At your tables, desks, small groups, however you want to word it, I'm going to give you like 90 seconds. I want the elevator version, which is just a really short explanation of mitosis, and then we'll dive into it. Andrew, I want you to play listener. Okay. In my cells, they obviously, each little piece does its job, same as your cells. How does that cell know what to do and how to do it? DNA. It has instructions in the form of DNA in which proteins then carry out all these things. So when we think about DNA, I'm going to do a little side sketch here just to give us some pieces. DNA, it looks like something. If I ask the shape of DNA, can you guys tell me? It's a double helix. Okay, so you may remember this. I'm going to do a little tiny bit of drawing. I'm going to draw a better one than that. Oh, you can if you want to. There it is. Check it out. Cha, 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 cha. Okay, I have some lovely DNA. Okay, so in each cell, you have a bunch of little strands of DNA. Okay, right now, it's in your nucleus of each cell, and it's in the form of what is called chromatin. Chromatin is like the jelly DNA that's inside of the nucleus of a cell. Okay, you got some DNA from two people in your lives. From who did you get DNA? From your dad and your mom. Biologically, like that's where your genetic information comes from. Now, obviously it has to mix over at some part. We're only doing mitosis right now, but let's think about this a little bit further. Inside of your cell, I'm going to make the claim, you have 46 little strands of DNA. 46 of them. And it turns out that you have two copies of similar strands that have the same directions. Do you know what I'm referring to? Chromosomes. Human beings, every single one of us has 46 chromosomes, or 23 pairs of chromosomes. 23 of them come from your mother, 23 of them come from your father, and they mix together. Okay, so as we're thinking about what's happening inside of a nucleus, we have 46 of these little things, little strands of DNA. Now, as we go and we want to turn them into chromosomes so that we can carry out this process of mitosis, they condense. Because right now I don't have a chromosome on the board. Not truly. I mean, we do, it's genetic information. But what winds up happening is that these things start to constrict down. So our cells are tiny, right? Like, can you see cells with the naked eye normally? No, you have to use a microscope. And even with a good microscope, you can see little bits and pieces, and you might be able to see like a little black dot for the nucleus, but it's just some tiny little black dot that you need 400 times magnification to see. Inside of each one of the cells in your body, these 46 little strands, if we stretch them out end to end, it's like 2 meters of DNA wrapped up, coiled into this tiny little space inside of each and every single one of your cells. Every cell has 46 of these all over the place. Now, that means that we need to be able to take this and we need to be able to wrap it up really, really, really tight to get it to fit inside of that nucleus. So, beyond this, we have our DNA in a strand. Here it is. Turns out that as it starts to condense, and this is what is called interphase, this is part of the mitosis process, it winds up turning into a string, and these are things called histones that it takes all this DNA and it makes it into essentially a little beaded string. All these beads run and they start to stack together and they organize themselves in 3 dimensions, but it starts to do this. And it starts to just fold itself. So imagine like you have a rope that you're laying down and it's just going and you're going back and forth, you're just building it up. Eventually, these, I'm going to stop drawing them, turn into something that looks more like this. And what do we just draw? This is a chromosome at this point. Now, depending on where you're looking, you may oftentimes see that these chromosomes might look more something like this. Whether it has the X or not doesn't really matter. It might just look like this for now. This could still be considered a chromosome, more commonly referred to as a chromatid. Chromatin condenses to a chromatid. Now, chromosome, chromatid, chromatin, they're all just different versions of the same genetic information. Okay, why do we typically see the X's? So I like where your head's at with XY. You just gave me a very particular chromosome. Those are sex chromosomes. XX, just the names of them, not because they're shaped like X. That's not where the connection comes from. XX will produce, do you guys recall? It's definitely human, but what'd you say? XX is female. XY is male. Okay, so as we look at this, we're going to go through mitosis with this as the understanding of this is called a chromatid. Now, I'm not going to quiz you on this just so you know, like this isn't a pure biology class, but this is like the most confusing thing that I've remember studying in biology is when do we call it what? I could not get it to click in my head. Don't know why. Okay, we are not going to draw super detailed pictures moving forward, but I am going to draw pictures. If you want a colored pencil, you can use a colored pencil, but I don't think you really need one. Okay, so let's check out mitosis. When we go through mitosis, every cell, with the exception of very few primarily sperm and egg cells, are produced in a different process. Mitosis is how we replace our cells. So we're going to start with a really easy picture. Interphase, I'm not even going to write it down. This is before we divide. Every single one of these things has 2 arms on it. When we duplicate these, they turn into 4-armed pieces. Now it looks a little bit more like a chromosome, like you're probably more used to. So I've taken all this genetic information and I've copied it. So now I have 2 copies of it. Okay, mitosis. Here we go. Step 1. I'm going to draw a cell, and in this cell, there's a nucleus. Cool. Cell and a nucleus. Now, I don't want to do humans. I don't want to do even like mosquitoes or fruit flies that have 6 chromosomes instead of 23 pairs. Sorry, 6 pairs instead of 23. I'm going to do 1. 1 single chromosome while we're looking at this. So check it out. Here's DNA that's not been scrunched up yet. This is it. It's called chromatin, but it's just DNA. Okay. This is step 1. Now, I'm going to take this one cell that has this DNA, this genetic information, and we want to make a new cell that has the same genetic information. Okay, so chromatin, here we are. Step 1. We are still in interphase, and we'll make sure that we label this. I'm going to take that, and I'm just going to make an identical copy. So here's 1, here's 2. Copy DNA. Awesome. I've taken it, I've copied it. Now, at the same time, and it doesn't really happen in a discrete sequence like this, but we're going to assume like it does. These DNA, right now, they're these strands here. They're going to bead themselves up and pack themselves really tightly to become a chromosome. So here we go. We get, on our next picture, DNA has been copied. It now condenses, and it has formed into something like this. Okay, now, for this, I'll wait because I'm going to fix that drawing a little bit. I don't even need that middle piece. I'm just going to say, here it is. Here's part of it. Now, there's something that you might notice. I claimed that all this strand of DNA right here has been bunched up and it formed this little propeller looking thing. To get the X, we have to duplicate it, which is what we've done, and we just simply form another one of these. So there's where our X shape comes from. These are 2 what we refer to as sister chromatids. Okay, they're connected to the same middle piece. These are just 2 copies of the same DNA, identical. Everybody's still on board. We had 1 strand of DNA, we duplicated it, we turned it into this X-looking thing. That's where we're at. Okay, now in prophase is our next step. All of this that we've seen up to here roughly is interphase. This is not a true part of mitosis, but it's what we need to do for mitosis to happen. Okay, I now have 2 copies of the same genetic information. How many cells are we going to make? We're going to make 2. Now, if I have two copies of the same information, do you agree that one copy should go to the new cell and one to the other one? Okay, so check it out. When we actually start forming these pairs, this is that little phase, and there's more to it than we're going through. This is what's known as prophase. Right here, we have condensed, we have formed a nice X shape. Okay, now this is the P from PMAT. Anybody remember what the M, and I know I heard one person say it already, what does the M represent in PMAT? Prophase, metaphase. Now, I have not been able to show it, and I won't. While prophase occurs, the nucleus, the surrounding, the membrane, it starts to dissolve and just disappear. So now we don't have a membrane anymore, but we have a bunch of chromosomes. Okay, from this point on, I'm just going to say, check it out, our nucleus is gone. Here it is. Here's our cell, no clear nucleus. Now, you're not going to be able to draw this, but I do want to be able to animate it. So check it out. Wait a second before you draw it. Here is what we just had. Here's my chromosome. If right now I'm on the right side of the cell, would you agree with that? Anywhere along this line, you would say it's where in the cell? So if it were over here, I'd say it's left. What about right here? What's between left and right? The middle, like metaphase, takes us to the middle of our cell. So check it out. Metaphase occurs, and there's more to it than this. There's some fancy things called centrioles that migrate to both sides. They start to grow these long strings that grab onto this. And this guy in metaphase moves to the middle. Boom. Metaphase. We go to the middle. And I would encourage, I was going to write middle. Metaphase. M for middle is what it makes me think of. Okay. Now, you do not have to draw this section, but I do want you, this might spur some old memories. These little yellow dots, these are called centrioles. They're an organelle in eukaryotes. As they're doing their thing, they grow strings that reach out and grab onto the middle part of these. Okay. Anybody recall what those are called? That's right, astral fibers. Okay, cool. So they grab on. Now, each half of that X, or that chromosome in this case, is identical copy. Now, in reality, there's 22 other pairs like this floating around that we need to deal with. 45, 46 total. Okay, if I want to make this two new cells, if these strings were to shorten, the left half of it would come here, right? And the right half, if these ones were to shorten, this whole section of it would go over here. Cool. What's after metaphase? Anaphase. Now, they went toward the middle in metaphase. Now we're going to go away from the middle in anaphase. A for away. Easy. Cool. So check it out. Two things, more than two things start to happen. We start to get a weird little misshaped cell all of a sudden, where if this was the middle from a second ago, we get one half of that chromosome hanging out over here, and an identical copy in the other one over here. They have moved away. Anaphase. Okay. At this point, it's probably clear that we have taken our one singular cell, we've copied all the rules, all the instructions, and then gone, split, separate. Okay. We have one more phase to deal with here before we really truly have two new cells. What's the last phase? T. Telophase. Okay, in telophase, and I can write a bunch of this down if you would like me to write more. I'm trying to be mindful of that. We have telophase, which a few specific things happen. All of those really bunched up chromatid, they start to relax again and they turn back into nice, lovely strands of DNA. Beyond that, we also get a lovely new nuclear membrane forming because a nucleus needs a membrane to be able to keep stuff straight. And then finally, this other piece called cytokinesis. Ugly. When you see kinesis, does that make you think of anything? Telekinesis. What's telekinesis? You can move stuff with your mind with telekinesis, but you can move stuff. Anybody who wants to be a physical therapist, a doctor, sports medicine, you're probably not going to study biology. You're probably not going to do chemistry. Do you know what your major is likely to be in college? So anatomy, maybe. Probably not if you're going to be a physical therapist. Kinesiology. Kinese for moving. Okay, in the cell, that gunk, that jelly that everything sits in, do you remember what it's called? Something plasm. cytoplasm. So if we have cytokinesis, it's the movement of the cytoplasm. Cool. Check it out. Our last phase, all of those things happen, and this is going to start to pinch further and further. So maybe it does this a little bit. My cytoplasm gets moved around. So after this step, here we are. We have this lovely cell. A membrane has formed around this. We have this lovely cell. A membrane has formed around it. It relaxes back into its nice string DNA, and we have gone through telophase, ending with cytokinesis. Now, from this point, with only one chromosome, we can highlight this pretty handily. Each one of these cells has a single strand of DNA that is exactly identical, hopefully, to the starting cell. We now have 2 daughter cells, and I'll just write this. We end with 2 daughter cells that are exactly like the original. Now, this is a hope because sometimes it turns out that these things don't happen perfectly. If something messes up in this process, and a really common one that happens with humans is in this process of mitosis, while cells are trying to fix themselves, something wonky happens, and one of our new cells is a little bit off, and it doesn't follow the rules, and it likes to grow and grow and grow and grow and steal resources from nearby cells, and that can ultimately kill people. What is it, Dwayne? It's cancer if this process goes wrong and your body doesn't catch it. The good news is most of the time, and this is a really scary sounding thing at first, we probably all have cells that are doing the wrong thing right now. Every single one of us. The good news is that we have lovely checks and balances where cells will self-destruct. It's called apoptosis. Everybody has cells that mess up somewhere in this process. Most of the time your body catches it. As people get older and older and the body gets more worn, it's less likely to catch it, which is why it's way more likely for 50 and 60-year-old people to get cancer than it is for 10 and 20-year-old people to get cancer. Okay, your body does a good job of curing cancer most of the time. Cool. All right, so this is mitosis. Does all of this seem familiar? Cool. Anybody looking at this and going, I've never seen this before? Good sign. All right, so we will not get meiosis today. I will give us a little bit more time, but I do want to talk about some stuff here. Now, everything that we've done here, mitosis specifically, it's a type of asexual reproduction. We don't need any sort of sexual contact. This is only focusing on a single what? A single cell. Now, you have trillions and trillions of cells inside of you that are doing this constantly, which is awesome. But it turns out that some places in our world, this happens at a much larger level. So we have some true organism reproduction. Rather than just cellular reproduction, I want to sneak forward. We're still in asexual reproduction. Some organisms, as a whole organism, not just cells, do this. Some organisms do this. And it's awesome that organisms do this. Okay, as we look at this, I've not spent much time in the ocean. Obviously, I spend a lot of time near the ocean. Has anybody in here played with anemones before? Okay, so other than Finding Nemo, I don't really have a whole lot of thoughts about anemones, to be honest. Do you guys all know what an anemone looks like? Should we Google a picture? A sea anemone. Okay, so check this out. Some crazy things. Anemones, they do not breed through sexual reproduction. They don't. They reproduce themselves asexually. So I cannot draw a sea anemone. Is that what Nemo lives in, right? Yeah. And an anemone, a stinging anemone. Okay, weird. Cool. Anemones. Anemone. Okay, these things undergo asexual reproduction, and it's awesome. They do so by what is called fission. Fission. They don't go fishing, they do fission. Okay, for this is the idea of mitosis, but on a big level. These things clone themselves. Like mitosis, they clone, they split, you now have 2 organisms of identical copies. So, clone themselves, clone themselves. Every single cell in their body is replicated and duplicated. They clone themselves, and where you had 1 anemone before, you now have 2. Cool. I think it's cool. I don't know if you do or not. Okay, Another way to do this, and I should have done fission first, so it's going to be inconsistent with this, so I'm sorry about that. Okay, somebody did a presentation earlier this year on the immortal jellyfish. Is that true? Was that this class or was that last year? Anybody remember talking about immortal jellyfish? I don't remember who did it. Some jellyfish that never die. Now, for this, we have another way. So fission should have been first, and I'm going to switch. Another way that we have asexual reproduction is in the form of budding. Okay. Now, when I see the word bud, it makes me think of like a bud on a plant. It's where a flower is about to come out. Okay. If we look throughout, coral are a weird type of life. Like coral reefs, you've all probably seen or been to one, I would imagine. They're alive. They're their own classification. We'll get into classifications here in the coming days. But budding, all that we're doing is copy grows on ourself. Copy of organism. I'm going to use ORG for organism. Copy of organism grows on original. And eventually it gets large enough that it doesn't hold on anymore. So it's like, imagine I just have a big growth, like a big gross boil or something. And all of a sudden someday it falls off and it grows another Holloway. That's awesome. Terrifying from a human perspective, but awesome from a biological perspective. Copy of organism grows on original, then falls off and grows. Okay. There are a lot, all right, there's several things that wind up doing it like this. The easy example of this, falls off and grow. There we go. Easy example is coral. Coral does this. If you look at coral, it's spiky and pokey. If you look at one, take a picture and come back a few years later, you'll see another small spiky part on it. Eventually, something will knock it off and it'll just grow more coral, which is pretty cool. In that purely philosophical, just interesting thought, we're going to take a human perspective, and this is kind of a brain break just because I'm curious in your guys' input. One last. If I'm a plant, is there, like, I'm imagining I'm a tree now. Like, we're just taking all sorts of crazy things here. I'm a tree. How do I reproduce? Like, am I a boy tree or a girl tree? Is there a way to distinguish?
No, I think, aren't you a girl and guy?
So maybe you could be hermaphroditic. That's what that's called. But are there trees that we classify as male trees, boy trees, and girl trees? Anybody sneeze during the spring where you're somewhere with trees? You ever been somewhere with trees? Okay. You ever been somewhere with trees in the spring? Okay. Next time you're somewhere with trees in the spring, go to it and shake the tree. So acorns might come out. That's not what I was expecting. What makes allergies go crazy? Pollen. Okay. Pollen comes out of trees, right? Now, not all trees flower. Not all variations of a plant will flower. But pollen comes out of a lot of different things. Okay. Pollen gets spread to plants elsewhere, right? From bees. Bees go into a tree, they get a bunch of pollen on them, and then they go to another tree, and then they fertilize it with that pollen. So check it out. I'm a tree. I have a bunch of pollen that leaves my tree and goes to a reproductive organism of another plant. Could I be looked at as a boy tree then? If pollen's like the synonym of sperm in this situation?
Yes.
Like,
But don't you also get pollen?
so yes, and that's that hermaphroditic idea that we're coming to. It's just a nice question. As we're thinking about it, just to, like, things are closer to us and farther than us, like, at all points, really. I'm feeling philosophical. I don't know why. Okay, so check it out. We can bud. Now, if you're a plant and you need to reproduce in the ocean, can you drop a bunch of pollen and it'll float through the breeze to other plants? No. So there's one more type of reproduction that we see pretty commonly with marine plants. Last piece here, we're going to talk about vegetative. And I'm going to draw a picture of this one. Okay. What's the largest organism on the planet? I disagree. That's maybe the largest mammal. Largest animal, even. Is there other life that's bigger?
That one tree in that one place where it's like just like thousands of tons, it's just one tree.
So, yes. And they undergo what's called vegetative reproduction. So, check it out. I'm going to draw a lovely tree. And here's the ground. So, not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. Here's a tree doing its thing. Okay, I have a tree. You're missing some of this tree, though. I like what you said. The roots. There's obviously roots, right? So the largest organism in our planet is really like a big forest. Maybe it's some sort of fungi, but we'll get there. Okay, most trees, we think of the roots probably doing something like this. Now, whether they go that deep or not, it really just depends. But everybody agree that this is essentially what trees do. Now, from time to time, is it possible that one of the roots branches out over here? Like it just goes yak, it goes crazy. And then maybe it gets up to here, and out of this tree grows a tree that doesn't fall off, it doesn't separate. Okay, in this situation, when you first look, how many trees do we have? Looks like 2 trees, right? Do we really have 2 trees, though? So I'm telling you, this tree completely originated from this root. It's still 1 tree, even though we see 2 trees. This sort of reproduction, vegetative reproduction, it happens all over the place. Here is a lovely example of a type of seagrass. They send out these little pieces. Now, in my picture was roots. These are runners or rhizomes, but check it out. We have a single branch here that has sent out further rhizomes, and out of each little node, a new piece of grass has grown out of it. This is not 4 different pieces of grass. This is one single organism that's reproducing itself in this way. Okay, it's awesome how it happens. We have looked at the asexual reproduction. On Monday or Tuesday, depending on the hatchery situation in the water, we will jump into the sexual reproduction, the process of meiosis, and further genetic diversity. We have 25 minutes to continue boat stuff. Cool. All right, so before I end the video, I lost all this yesterday. Can you guys help me? I said types of boats. Did we write them all down? Hey, they're definitely here.
I was gonna find the difference between a trawler
You made it.
and
You made it.
a tramper.
Okay, so I'll come talk with you guys. Okay, so looking at it, didn't write the boat types here yet. Dang it. All right, what? Can somebody remind me what I had on the board yesterday?
Got it. It's trampers,
We had trampers,
crab boats,
long line, crab,
seiners,
Daggers. Daggers.
daggers,
draggers, seiners, longliner, trawler. We did not have daggers. Catch process. There's one that somebody said I forgot to write here.
Dragger. Oh, no, you got dragger. Tramper.
Nope, it's here. What is it? Trawler. Nope, have it. Which one did I forget?
crab. Oh, catch or
Catcher processor. What is it?
Catch.
Oh, it's gonna drive me crazy. It's gonna drive me crazy. Seiners, yes. Thank you. Cool. So, just to be ultra clear, each group, you are going to be finding one and building a rudimentary boat. Like, very rudimentary. We're not going to spend a crazy amount of time. We're going to make them small in hopes of not being too small, but I'm fighting the opposite side in physics right now. Okay, for each of these, what did I ask you to find?
Basic.
Their basic function.
Primary stock and size.
Okay, when I say primary stock, what am I talking about?
What they catch.
What do they catch? Yeah. Stock. Yeah, what they aim to catch, I
I'm pretty
suppose.
sure like every single one of them catches cod and stuff.
I'm fine with that, because they'll definitely vary. Okay, for this, just to be super clear, you probably already picked one that you already think you're going to make a model of. Cool with that. But for each of them, small little snippets. I want to know what is the basic function of each of these boats, what do they catch typically, and they might have more than one thing, and then what is the size or the size range of them. Cool. All right, we have 20 minutes. Let's get a little bit of research done.